We're now going to look at snap and grid in AutoCAD Electrical. This is a standard AutoCAD setting. It's available in regular AutoCAD as well, but it's very useful in AutoCAD Electrical for drawing straight lines that snap to a regular grid at regular intervals, hence the phrase grid and also snap. They're drafting settings down on the status bar, and they're these icons here and here. So there's grid mode and there's snap mode. Now, the drawing we're in is drawing Demo 02, and that's in the Project Demo 04 in the Project Manager. So just be aware of that for your working files. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch on the snap and the grid, just using the settings that are already there. So there we go, there's grid. See the grid appear in the drawing area, and then I switch snap on as well, like so. Now, what I'm going to do is zoom into this area here of the drawing. And as I pan that down a bit, you can see there, look, there's the main squares with the slightly bolder lines. And then you've got the smaller grid squares. Now, each line on the grid is a grid line, spaced at regular intervals in the X and Y direction. And then I can also snap between those grid lines as well. So let's have a look at that and see how that works. I'm going to zoom in a bit closer so that we can actually see a grid square. So there's a grid square there that I'm sitting the crosshair in. If I go up to the Home tab on the ribbon now, and click on the line command here in the draw panel and come in, you'll notice that all of a sudden my mouse movement is very jerky. That's because I'm snapping to each increment of the grid. Hence those terms again, snap and grid. So the snap settings are allowing me to snap to each of these increments even though they're not on the grid lines. So why is that? Well, let's just hit escape a moment, clear that line command, and I'm going to come down here onto the status bar, click there and go to Snap Settings. So you can see that the grid X and Y spacings are 0.5 in there, like so. So each grid square is half a unit in size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that at 0.5 and change this here, the Snap X spacing, to 0.25. So I'm increasing the increment that we snap to. If I just press Tab there, that'll update the Snap Y spacing for me as well. Click on OK, the grid looks the same. However, if I go back up to the line command now and come in here, can you see now I can only snap to half of the grid spacing because it's 0.25. So the snap is 0.25, the grid is 0.5. So can you see I'm only going to halfway points each time. So I could go from the center of that grid square there, draw the line, come across to the center of that grid square there, and I'll just press enter there to finish. And you can see, look, my line goes from the center of that square to the center of that square because I've got that 0.25 snap switched on. I don't have to use grid and snap, so if I come down here to the status bar, click, click, they're both switched off. The mouse movement is back to normal. If I zoom out now, you can see that there's no grid on the drawing. However, when you're drawing wires, like so, in AutoCAD Electrical, that snap and grid can be very useful for nice, accurate, regular intervals between the wires on your schematic drawings. So I'll just delete that line now, we don't need that anymore. And as you can see, that is how you utilize your snap and your grid on the status bar in your drafting settings.